Hi, it's Kirby Summers. Today is November 9th. It is the wee hours of the morning. My voice is somewhat hoarse, so I'm going to ask you to um, understand that, I have been having issues as I explained the other day. However, what I wanted to do is I've been seeing a lot of people talk about what's going to happen at the time should Sean Combs be in front of a judge with a jury and all of that. And I've heard a kind of like two different mind thoughts, and I wanted to share that with you, in addition to correcting some information and bringing you perhaps some overlooked pieces of this puzzle. Before I get started, because I have forgotten, please like the podcast. And the reason I ask is because I am deeply shadow banned. And liking a podcast and commenting, so please feel free to comment below, and subscribing may help me be seen by other people who are looking at this subject. I've been talking about it, working about it. I myself am a survivor, as many of you know. I was kicked off Twitter by Elon Musk when he purchased it, and I lost my main account, which had tens of thousands of subscribers or followers. And I have to work literally almost every day, whether I am ill, whether I feel like it or not, to just keep going and to try to get the message of not just what I've known for a very long time, but what my research has yielded. So when I ask you to like the podcast, please do so. Um, so, I uploaded a screen image earlier. I wake up very early. I have to, in order to put in maybe 10, 12 hours a day, literally 7 days a week, I need to be able to get up early. Otherwise, I can't do everything I have to do. So, earlier today, and now it's just a little bit before 5 in the morning, I took a screen image of Sean Diddy Combs' 1997 song Victory. And so from his Insta. And so as it's opening, the words New World Order show up. It's on X. You can go to my account, which I have included the URL below, as well as the URL to all of my socials, and you can see it too. Frankly, most songs and music videos, but music in general, by very popular musicians, typically does have hidden meanings, as do movies. But I think a lot of people haven't thought about music having hidden meanings for a very long time. I know that I have been working on the Mike Jeffries, former CEO of Abercrombie and Fitch, because of course that was another company owned by Wexner. And there are serious allegations against him and his long-term BF. I'm just wondering whether or not to Matthew Smith, whose last name is frankly very misleading. Um, as I point out in my series, which is on Substack. So I've been going down that road, which led me to, I'd already written about Mick Jagger, as it pertained to the Epstein world, because Jagger is in Epstein's Black Book and he was photographed with Ghislaine. And so I've already written about that and gone down that rabbit hole. But and I'm just mentioning this because I want to reiterate the concept that there are hidden messages in songs. But in the case of Jeffries, he married a woman whose father owned a certain the rights to the sheet music of the Beatles. And I thought to myself when I first became aware of this, I believe a year ago when I began writing about Mike Jeffries, I just thought that was peculiar. Um, and I thought it was peculiar, I'll be honest with you, because my abuser, and you may be familiar with his father's name, which is Meshulam Riklis. Riklis funded Ariel Sharon and was very close with, presidents commencing, I think, from even before John F. Kennedy, who was assassinated November 22nd, 1963. It'll be 61 years this month. I thought it unusual because I know that when I was with him in whatever state we were in, uh, they also owned Elizabeth Arden, for example. And he would walk around the Elizabeth Arden displays, the cosmetic displays, when we would walk into a mall, to see how the people behind the counter were behaving and to see what the crowd was like. And I knew this was because he was checking up on his findings. Um, but he did the same thing, frankly, with the Beatles. There were tower records all over. And I remember he had a habit of going on Saturdays. Now, mind you, he's a Zionist, but he wasn't practicing necessarily, although, he did all of the regular things. He was not necessarily practicing or very observant because on Saturdays, which is a day when most people who are very observant do not do anything hard labor or anything. I do remember that on Saturdays he would go into Tower Records and like I didn't understand it at the time. He would be doing something regarding the Beatles. And so I knew that the fact that I had stumbled upon the Beatles as it connected to Wexner, as it connected to Epstein, as it connected to Mike Jeffries, was an important rabbit hole that I had not really studied. And so, what I do know about the Beatles, and I have since learned a lot more, which, I have a new series. It's called what did I call it? I use Dave McGowan's inside the weird scenes inside Laurel Canyon because I now renamed the series Weird Scenes Inside Liverpool. However, with the Beatles, they used to have a lot of hidden messages in their songs. Um, and I don't know how many of you are aware of that. But with the Sean Combs song Victory, now we have visuals because we have actual videos for songs now. And so that showed up all the way back in 1997. What I realize when I hear people, podcasters, or other people talk about, oh, well, what's going to happen when the trial comes? Well, first of all, it's not going to happen on the date that has been put aside because there are always delays. So this is going to be delayed for a very long time, as I have stated previously on my channel. However, when that time comes, it's 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 not like we have a pure justice system. It's not like we have pure judges sitting on the bench It's not like we have pure prosecutors, right? And how do I know this? I know this because I followed the Ghislaine Maxwell trial moment by moment. And one of the four victims that was called upon to be a witness against Ghislaine Maxwell is a woman named Anushka DiGiorgio. If I have to cough, excuse me, because I don't know how to edit, and I'm not going to edit. And Anushka DiGiorgio had been introduced by Ghislaine Maxwell and frankly Epstein at the age of 20. So she hadn't been a minor, but not all victims are minors. I think you're beginning to understand that. In fact, most of the people who are stepping forward were not minors. They were of age, but you're still a victim if somebody tricks you, coerces you, threatens you, so on and so forth. However, she had been introduced to Trump when Trump was 50 and she was 20 by Ghislaine Maxwell. There was an article, and in fact, I have done a podcast on this channel of perhaps 2 years ago about this very thing. And what people say regarding the four witnesses at Ghislaine Maxwell's trial is that, well, none of the four witnesses were trafficked to anyone of importance. They were only, this is what I hear, they were only trafficked to Jeffrey Epstein. That is not true. That is not true. Anushka DiGiorgio, even in mainstream media, there's an article called How Sweet Trump's Brit of All Right. And then I'm going to try to read this to you if my throat allows me. Just weeks after ditching his second wife, America's best-known billionaire, Donald Trump, has fallen under the spell of a 20-year-old English girl. Trump, 50, who has failed in his bid to secure the services of Princess Diana's butler, Paul Burrell, was in search of another British trophy when he met London model Anushka DiGiorgio at a party in Manhattan. Several American millionaires already had their eyes on Anushka, but she was there with Robert Maxwell's daughter, Ghislaine, who has introduced her to several of her friends and to the property developer. And none of his would-be rivals owned a vast mansion in Florida like Donald does, Mar-a-Lago, where, and then the writer makes a note where I have dined with him and his outgoing wife, Marla, is enough to make any young girl go weak at the knees. After their meeting, Trump flew Madame Maxwell and the model south to the Sunshine State, where all three enjoyed a happy weekend together. When they returned to New York, Anushka was installed in one of Donald's many apartments there. Mr. Giorgio likes older men. She went out once or twice with Joanna Lumley's ex-husband, Jeremy Lloyd, who was 45 years her senior. Another point, Jeremy Lloyd, as I have written again on my Substack, is an old-time British movie star. And he was scheduled to have been at Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski's house in Los Angeles on the night that the family was attacked by the followers of Charles Manson. I mean, honestly, there is almost no major like very weird crime or CIA asset or mind controlled assassin or political assassination that the tentacles of the Epstein case do not touch. And what I want to say is, well, let me first finish my thought on the so-called trial, if it ever happens. It will be fixed just like the one that Glenn had, which was, from my perspective, because of what I knew, a sham trial. Um, it was like literally a sham trial. None of the prosecutors asked any questions regarding any of the major names, such as, let's say, Donald Trump, which had already been in the public. Uh, it had been written about clearly in mainstream media. But the prosecutors didn't touch that. And they didn't discuss many other things that would have shed light on, let's say, what's being openly discussed by some of the victims in the Sean Combs case. And so while people believe that the information leaking out in the Combs case is new, and I'm seeing wherever I look, people seem very shocked. To me, I'm like, why? I mean, like, really, this has been there. This is the norm, and it has been forever. It's just that it's been covered up. But for some reason, I am of the opinion that I thought everyone was walking around with eyes wide open. Like, I just thought, okay, well, we've been through the Franklin thing, which again is still not really well understood because there was MK Ultra involved. All you have to do to get that information is to listen to Paul Benassi talk about it because my abuser's brother-in-law was his handler. He was a congressman. So like there was MK Ultra involved in that. There was MK Ultra involved in the Epstein thing. There is MK Ultra involved in the Sean Combs thing. But what I hear is not only shock at the stuff that is being exposed by the victims who are speaking, some of them are speaking, and by the attorneys and the lawsuits. And I just find it surprising because this stuff has been going on forever. However, the highest name that people cite is Clive Davis. And then they're kind of stumped. Well, how difficult is it to connect Clive Davis to CBS, who we know was a three-letter agency controlled station? I mean, CBS, NBC, ABC, and frankly, all of mainstream, right? So the newspapers, the magazines like the Atlantic, Time, like when people find it, oh my God, why hasn't this received time in the mainstream? I think to myself, or why do they stop at Clive Davis and they say, well, it has to go up, but they don't know where up is. Well, up is an intelligence agency. Or they don't know where, how Epstein was able to finagle what he did and like, seriously? I mean, not only do we have Alexander Acosta's quote, but we know that not only did he go around bragging that he was part of the three-letter agency in the United States, but we also have tangible evidence that he was also operating with the state of Israel, for example. Um, so that who runs these ops? Who runs something like what Sean Diddy Combs? And so of course that information will be suppressed, right? Because uh, it does get frustrating because I've been basically saying the same thing now for 5.5 years. In any event, Combs has once again taken another shot at getting bail. There are all kinds of new additions to the request for bail for Sean Combs. Clearly, he doesn't want to be in jail. So this just happened. This is an update. I think this is what his third or his fourth time. Um, but I believe that Combs is going to be like, let's say, like an Epstein or a Craig Spence, where he has been let off their private, let's call it island, because everybody uses island as though the abuse only happened on the island, when in reality it happened everywhere. But he's gotten off the island. He's been kicked off the island for various reasons, you know? And so he's going to be the fall guy. He's going to be the fall guy. And yeah, if he is still breathing by the time there is a trial, why do people think it's going to be a fair trial? Why do people assume that, oh, this is going to be exposing X, Y, and Z or these other celebrities? No, it doesn't mean that, because we saw it firsthand with the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. It did not at any point in time point fingers or name anybody else, and there were very powerful people connected to that. Anyway, I'm going to see if there's anything else here that I wanted to share with you before I sign off. But I would be very curious to hear your thoughts on what I've just said. And again, I don't want to forget, like the podcast, like it, subscribe. All right, guys, have a good day. Bye.